I'm Faye, and I work in an office at a university hospital. I'm married to Stephen, and I thought this would be a new chapter in my life. But, surprise, our married life turned out to be really short. I didn't see that coming when we tied the knot. Stephen has been a manager at a home improvement store since we started dating. When we first met, I thought Stephen was kind, family-oriented, and decisive. He confidently proposed, and I said yes, thinking he was reliable. Stephen, who used to live with his parents, moved in with me after we got married. Despite our busy schedules, we managed to sync our days off and were planning our honeymoon. Just talking about it made me happy, and back then, I was really glad I married Stephen. But over time, things started to change. Our home, where Stephen and I lived, was a 3-bedroom apartment just 2 years old. It was new, albeit a bit far from the city and not a luxury high-rise, making it reasonably priced. Considering all factors, I decided to go for it, and living there was pretty convenient. Stephen wasn't into luxury, so it was comfortable for both of us. Then one day, Stephen told me, "My mom and sister want to come over tomorrow to see our new home, so I've invited them." My initial reaction was that he should have talked to me about the date, considering I had work the next day while he was off. His decisiveness was good, but sometimes it hurt me when he didn't consider my feelings. I said, "I'll be at work, is that okay?" Stephen replied, "Sure, we'll just take a quick look around the house, and that's it." I agreed, thinking it would be a simple visit. However, when I got home the next evening, the atmosphere was lively. There was a pleasant smell, and in the living room, Stephen, my mother-in-law, and sister-in-law had prepared food and drinks, enjoying themselves. "What's happening?" I exclaimed. My mother-in-law, looking a bit tipsy, greeted me enthusiastically. "Oh, Faye, you're home. Done with work?" "You've been working hard." My sister-in-law, with a cheerful expression, said, "Hey, Buffet, you must be tired. But wow, this house is amazing. It's not fair that you get to live in such a place." Stephen was enjoying the moment, and I was the only one feeling out of the loop. "I was told you were coming for a house tour, but did you plan on having dinner as well?" I asked, trying not to upset them, as what was happening differed from what Stephen had told me. I felt a bit upset, but Stephen, with a smile, casually replied, My mom and sister said they had plenty of time, so we thought, why not have dinner?" Even though he said it was their time he was considering, not mine. I wanted to convey that I don't dislike my mother-in-law or sister-in-law, but I don't want to be on my toes in my own home. However, Stephen said, "My dad is not around anymore, and it's always just the two of them. They need a change of scenery once in a while." He said this in a carefree manner. Hearing this, my mother-in-law said, "Stephen is such a kind boy, Faye. You should appreciate that you got to marry Stephen," as if I was being taken care of by Stephen. I wanted to retort, "I'm working and earning too, you know." But then I thought, maybe it's okay to let them have a family dinner once in a while. So I decided to step back. I didn't want any conflict, and they had bought the groceries and prepared the meal themselves. But then my mother-in-law said something that left me shocked. "But this fridge is stocked with good meat, high-quality meat. Really, it is delicious." I couldn't believe my ears for a moment. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law were clearly using our groceries. The alcohol and snacks my sister-in-law enjoyed were the exact ones we bought. "Didn't you get these yourself?" I asked. My mother-in-law nonchalantly replied, "Well, if there's this much in the fridge, no need to go shopping, right? Going to the supermarket is a hassle." She said it without any remorse. To add to it, she said, "I'm tired now, so if you want to eat something, Faye, you'll have to make it yourself." I was genuinely angry about the whole situation. Though my emotions were ready to burst, I somehow managed to suppress my anger and responded with a forced smile. "Is that so?" "Well, I'll handle my share then," I said, heading to my room. It seems some of my frustration leaked out when I closed the living room door, making a louder noise than intended. Shortly after, I could faintly hear my mother-in-law and sister-in-law talking. "Oh my, is she always this rough? Is she okay?" My sister-in-law added, in such a nice house. I wonder if Faye won't end up breaking something, right? Stephen casually responded, I'll remind her later. She's probably just tired from work. And after all that, my in-laws left without cleaning up. Stephen even came to my room and lightly scolded me. What's with all the irritation? It's not nice to my moms, you know. Honestly, all this without my permission, and them leaving without cleaning up was too much. When I told him, Stephen tried to pacify me. Calm down, it's a one-time thing. I'll take care of the cleaning, just relax. I wasn't convinced, but I thought it wasn't worth a fight and managed to suppress my anger. I forcibly considered it part of Stephen's family love and regained my composure. With our honeymoon approaching in a month, I didn't want to ruin our relationship. After all, this wouldn't happen again. Now I just need to focus on our honeymoon and lift my spirits. However, that honeymoon turned out to bring misfortune. A month later, we embarked on our honeymoon, a 3-night trip to Alaska. While I wouldn't have minded an overseas adventure, Stephen preferred to keep it simple. He felt staying within the country was sufficient, so we settled on this plan. The hotel we chose was nice, and we enjoyed the local cuisine, hot springs, and the mesmerizing northern lights, creating cherished memories. As our delightful journey neared its end, we began our journey back home, feeling a tinge of sadness that it was over. We talked about planning another getaway someday. However, just as we were about to reach home, a sudden realization struck me. Did I remember to lock the bathroom window before leaving the house? Living on the 4th floor of an apartment building with a small bathroom window, I didn't think there was a risk of burglary. Still, the thought crossed my mind, and I mentioned it to Stephen. His casual response was, It'll be fine. My mother and sister are there. I was perplexed. What? My mother-in-law and sister-in-law are at our house now. I didn't hear about this. Stephen, with a calm expression, casually replied, Oh, didn't I tell you? They said they'd clean up while we're away. It's really helpful, you know. Dust piles up after 3 or 4 days. He said it cheerfully, revealing that he had given the house keys to my mother-in-law without informing me. This revelation stirred my frustration once again. From that point, I barely spoke to Stephen and hurried home faster than usual, anxious about what was happening in our house. Upon entering the living room, as expected, they were having another gathering. Moreover, dishes made from food likely taken from our refrigerator were spread out. Oh, you're back. Did you have a good time? My mother-in-law casually called out. I was in no state to give her a proper answer. Despite her mention of cleaning up, the place was messier than before, and there were even more bags from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Seeing all that, I couldn't contain my frustration any longer. Enough. What are you doing? Please go home. This is our house. It's a problem if you keep doing as you please, I blurted out, unable to hold back my emotions. My mother-in-law remarked, Why are you so upset? I'm not in a position to say anything. This is Stephen's house, so there shouldn't be a problem with whatever we, as his family, do. My sister-in-law, adopting a somewhat arrogant attitude, added, Exactly, Faye. If anything, we have more right to live here than you. I just can't grasp their perspective. I'm contributing to the expenses of this house too, you know. It's as much my home as it is yours, so I expect you to seek my permission as well. I was overcome with a sense that I no longer wanted to hold back. There was also a concern that if I didn't speak up, they would overstep their bounds. What fueled my determination further was the unexpected remark, Hey, Faye, you need to stop. How can you speak to my family like that? We're all going to live here from now on. Don't be so selfish. His words left me momentarily stunned. Living with these in-laws? Was it decided without my knowledge again? Unable to suppress my frustration, I retorted back to Stephen. So why do you make decisions on your own without informing me? Can't you consult with me at least once? Who's being selfish here? This is ridiculous. The cheerful atmosphere from our honeymoon trip was nowhere to be found. The room had turned into a battlefield, but as always, Stephen was the one to put an end to the tension. Enough. If you dislike living here so much, Faye, you can leave, he commanded, as if delivering a final blow. Surprisingly, his words had the opposite effect on me. They brought a sense of calm. It dawned on me that I couldn't continue living with these people. If that's the case, there's no reason for me to stick around with Stephen and the others. I could have questioned Stephen when he made that statement. Are you sure about that? However, my inclination to avoid further entanglement prevailed. Thus, I nonchalantly responded, all the while sporting a smirk. Okay, got it. I'll be out of here in no time. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law might not have grasped why I was grinning, but they would eventually figure it out. Subsequently, I swiftly packed only the essentials and left the house. Stephen's parting words were cool off for a while, but I was already composed and harbored no intention of returning. He seemed to assume I would come back. I reached out to my parents, requested temporary accommodation, initiated divorce preparations, and commenced the search for a new place to live. Although Stephen attempted to call me several times, I ignored him due to my busy schedule. After about 2 months, I had settled into my new residence. Recalling that I still had belongings at the house shared with Stephen, I decided to answer his call for the first time in a while. It was evident from the start that he was in a state of panic. Faye, finally. What are you doing? Come back now, he urgently repeated. Indeed, Stephen believed I was returning. Remembering this, I responded firmly, no, I'm not coming back. In fact, I've already filed for divorce and consulted with a lawyer. Let's discuss the property division. He was taken aback. Divorce? Please not that. I can't deal with that right now, he pleaded, growing even more frantic. To be frank, I had a pretty good idea of what was happening. When I inquired, what's the matter? He confessed, I'm broke. I'm already in debt, so come back quickly. Well, that wasn't entirely surprising. I had seen it coming. Perhaps he thought he could afford to kick me out, assuming I would return. But to his disappointment, he was mistaken. Stephen wasn't earning much to begin with. His take-home pay was around $2,000 a month, and the monthly mortgage for the condo we bought was $2,000. So how was he managing it? I was contributing $1,500, and he was only putting in $500. Given that I was earning over 3 times his salary, it wasn't an issue. That's why I covered all other expenses like utilities and groceries. Even our honeymoon had to be modest because he claimed he had no money. At some point, I realized that it wasn't that he had expensive tastes. He simply lacked the income. Once I left, he had to shoulder all the expenses on his own. The condo was in his name, and the payments were deducted from his account. Consequently, with my departure, he lost the $1,500 I used to contribute every month. To make matters worse, Stephen's unemployed mother-in-law and sister-in-law were now living with him, undoubtedly adding to the living expenses. Therefore, it was natural for me to feel upset when Stephen made decisions about the house independently or casually used items from the fridge. With just his salary, they wouldn't be able to make ends meet for a month, and drowning in debt seemed inevitable at this rate. My mother was furious, demanding, "Why did you kick Faye out? Come back home immediately and do something." I was left speechless, realizing that his mother and sister were under the mistaken impression that he earned a decent living given his title as a store manager. However, the harsh reality was that this title didn't necessarily translate into a high salary. We had bought a reasonably decent condo, and they wholeheartedly believed that Stephen was the primary contributor. It was pitiful and could only be described as foolish. Additionally, it turned out that the mother-in-law, having exhausted all her deceased husband's assets, ended up moving into my house broke. Despite previously living in a rented apartment, they seemed to have properly terminated that lease. The situation made me cringe at having any familial ties with them. Now more than ever, I wanted to finalize our divorce. Upon suggesting, proceed with the divorce process with your lawyer. Then we'll discuss the financial aspects. Stephen responded, "Oh, really? Okay, so all I have to do is fill out the paperwork with my lawyer and send it back to the court, right?" His voice sounded relieved. Our divorce was finalized without any complications. While visiting my previous residence to organize my belongings, I completed the shipping procedures for my luggage. Despite his mother and sister being present, Stephen said, "Phew, you really saved me, Faye. I'm already $10,000 in debt. If things continue as they are, it's going to increase by another $5,000 this month." I was shocked at how rapidly he accumulated such a substantial debt. Evidently, his mother and sister had extremely poor spending habits, yet they seemed shameless, grinning while relying on my financial support. So, I suggested, how about your mother and sister start working for the money? If all three of you contribute, it should somehow work out, right? Stephen and his mother were taken aback, and he questioned, Aren't you going to help us out? What does that mean? Calmly, I responded, "What does that mean? That should be my question. Why should I cover your living expenses? Earn your own share." I didn't say I would pay. I said I would consider it. So I came up with a way for you guys to sustain yourselves. They started making a commotion, insisting, "This wasn't our agreement. Are you really our daughter-in-law?" I replied, "I'm not your daughter-in-law anymore, so good luck." I then got into my car and left my former residence. After a while, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law reluctantly began their job search. However, due to their laziness, they didn't make much progress. Meanwhile, the loans kept piling up, and living expenses continued to grow. Despite this, they maintained extravagant tastes, and Stephen's debt only escalated. Eventually, he resorted to borrowing from some risky sources, living in constant fear of debt collectors. On the other hand, I could finally use my hard-earned money for myself, enjoying hobbies and travel. Living a fulfilled life motivated me even more at work. One day, a colleague at work, who had been a listening ear during my complaints about Stephen, approached me and said, "You've been glowing recently, Faye." This became an opportunity for us to start dating, further enriching my daily life.